Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir. Rabbi tammim bil khair. Oh Allah, make it easy and do not make it difficult, and make it end well. Hello my friends, welcome to the first class of the Learning Tajweed program. In our first class, we'll learn the rule Izhar, insha'Allah. What does Izhar mean? It means making something apparent. But I don't want you to focus on the word Izhar. We're going to understand what it is in our examples anyways. My friends, when getting started on Tajweed, we have a certain main rule. With this main rule, our Tajweed classes will be so easy that you won't have any reason to be afraid of learning Tajweed anymore. In these classes, we'll learn Tajweed in a very easy and practical way, insha'Allah. When we recite the Quran, my friends, we have a main rule and you should never ever forget it. So write it down. After tanween and noon sakin, there's always a Tajweed rule. Let's write it down. There's always a Tajweed rule after tanween and noon sakin. As we're reciting the Quran, we keep reading and we see a tanween. What is a tanween? We learned it in the practical system series. If there are 2 lines above it, 2 lines under it, or there's a comma with a tail on it, meaning 2 fatha, 2 kasra, or 2 dama. We usually call this tanween. As you're reading the Quran, you see tanween on a letter. There's always a Tajweed rule after that letter. Same goes for noon sakin. As you're reading the Quran, you see a noon sakin. There's always a Tajweed rule on the letter that comes after noon sakin. Write this one down, my friends. There are 28 letters in the Quran. There is a Tajweed rule in all the 28 letters that come after noon sakin, about those 28 letters. Alright? We will put these 28 letters into groups. Rule 1, we have 28 letters. What happens if there are the letters Elif, Ha, Kh, Ayn, Ghayn, and Ha after tanween or noon sakin? There are 6 letters here, my friends. We have 28 letters, and we take those 6 out of the 28. And we take those 6 out of the 28. What happens if one of these 6 letters comes after tanween or noon sakin? The first rule happens. So that's why I don't want you to focus on Izhar. What do we do in the first rule? We read it as it is, meaning we don't do anything. Let's look at the examples. See? We read it as it is. An'amta alayhim. An example from Surah Al-Fatiha, we read it as An'amta alayhim. And see, there's a noon sakin. And after that, noon sakin, there's an ayn. And so what happens if there's ayn after noon sakin? The first rule happens. What do we do in the first rule? Nothing. We read it as it is. We read it as An'amta alayhim. That was an example from Surah Al-Fatiha, my friends. Yeah. So I'm reciting the Quran again, and kufuwan, tanween here. If there's tanween, there's always a Tajweed rule in the letter after the tanween. And what do we see here? An alif. We look at alif, which is in the first rule. What do we call this? Because it's in the first rule. Izhar, meaning making something clear. So we read it as it is, as kufuwan, ahad. And this is an example from Surah Al-Ikhlas. Kufuwan ahad. I see a tanween, and after that, one of these 6 letters. One of these letters, Elif, Ha, Kh, Ayn, Ghayn. And what happens if I see one of them? The first rule. What do we do in the first rule? Nothing. Let's look at another example. From Surah Al-Falaq. Ghasiqin. Let's stop here. You read the Quran and what do you see? A tanween. And what always comes after a tanween? A Tajweed rule. An alif after tanween. Ghasiqin idha waqab. Meaning, it's read as it's seen. Let me summarize. After tanween or noon sakin, there's always a Tajweed rule, which is our main rule. This will often come up in our other lessons too. What happens if any of the 6 letters we mentioned before takes place after tanween or noon sakin, the first rule happens. What do we do in the first rule? Nothing. We read it as it is, my friends.
Ve ahiru davana enilhamdülillahi rabbil alemin.